Johnny Arcane and Jocko sat on a rock at the summit of Hunter's Horn, their backs to the town of Kinghorn, their faces north, to the moon now sinking toward the dark, rolling forested hills and the distant snow-capped cone of the misty mountain. A pack of agitated coyotes was making its way through the ravines below them, all yips and yaps, none of the long, soulful melodies coyotes are capable of when they are at peace. Yet there was a sort of peace here, temporary as it was, on this high, windy vantage, far above the rushing of waters, the mooing of cows, the clanging of bells, the shouts of men and the cries of women. They had said nothing since they arrived, excepting the cradled seat that the stone had offered, settling in, content with the sharing of solitude, of breathing and human warmth. But there was something on Jocko's mind, Johnny could tell. That was why he brought him here, and he knew Jocko well enough not to be the first to speak. How strange it was to know these things about someone over a brief passage of time. How short were the moments of human companionship. How long the wanderings in between. The coyotes quieted. Perhaps they found what they were looking for. At that moment, Jocko inhaled. "I don't understand," he said. "Why did he have to die?" It was what Johnny thought he might say. Indeed, it was something he had been pondering himself, and already the thread of a reply was binding in his thoughts. But he struggled for a way to say it. Perhaps a story. Stories often worked better than concepts, especially with Jocko. "I never met my father," he said at last, "but he sent a message to my mother just before he died. Part of what he said, it is possible to choose the time of one's own departure." Jocko thought about this for a while. He folded his hands in his lap. Why would someone choose death? Below, the coyotes grew restless again, briefly, then settled into a tenuous calm. Above, the moon paled behind a thin stratum of cloud. It might be he didn't choose death. Did you see the look on his face? He might have just gone into a kind of bliss that was too strong for his body. Death, his bliss? No. I don't think death is bliss. Look at it this way, maybe. You saw him. You saw his face before he fell. He was looking at something that can't be contained. Johnny grasped at the words. "By time?" suggested Jocko. Yes, by time. Yes, that's it. If you go to that place, it doesn't matter what's next. Nothing is next. It doesn't matter if you die. Maybe the body is just too small to hold that feeling. That's good, he thought. I said the right thing. I've said what he needed to hear. But suddenly, Jocko started shivering uncontrollably. He pulled his arms around his shoulders as if he were clutching a blanket. I can't help it. I just can't. I'm afraid to die. Jocko began to sob, quiet little sobs with no breath in them. Johnny was at a complete loss. He thought maybe a hand on the shoulder or a pat on the back, but he did nothing. He waited. Eventually, Jocko's breath went quiet. He stared down at his hands. He looked up. I want to show you something, he said. From somewhere in the rumples of his coat, he produced a crinkly bundle, roughly folded many times. His hands trembled as he opened it, until at last he held the corners of a battered document about the size of the magic lantern projection in the bedroom, illuminated by the moonlight. It was a picture of himself, Jocko, a photograph, the very one that had hung on the wall outside the scullery door in the longhouse. Above the face, in large ink block letters, Jocko Moto. Below the face, kill this man. Johnny winced through clenched teeth. Oh, Jocko, where did you find it? On a tree, North Road, facing north. When? 2 days ago. Do you know why? Jocko took a moment to respond. Me and Bearclaw, we were out. We were always out taking down your posters. One day I was by myself looking for acorn hats. I saw your poster on a barn wall. I took it down. There were blackcoats hiding in the barn. They grabbed me. They cut me. He held up his left hand. The stubbly tip of his smallest finger was missing. They said, "We'll take the rest of you next time." And they let me go. Johnny felt like he was going to cry. Jocko, so sweet, so vulnerable. How could this be happening? You have to leave Kinghorn at once. Why? Indeed, why? The answer to that question was almost too strong, too strange to be spoken. Things are changing, Jocko. Believe me, I've seen it. You've seen it too. The borders have collapsed. It's going to start happening quickly now. Very quickly. It would be better if you're moving. You'd be safer as a sojourner. Change your name. Cut your hair. The blackcoats are stupid. They won't recognize you. Trust me, Jocko, you don't have to die yet. Jocko took a deep breath and let it out slowly. He took another and folded his arms, his hands grasping his shoulders. I want to go with the cowboys, Birdleg and Climber. Then you should do that. Yes, that's what you should do. Jocko shifted his weight, unclasped his arms. What about cows, though? Isn't that where it all started, when the cows came to Kinghorn? No, it started long before that. I don't know about cows. You can go with the cows for now. I don't know what's good, what's bad. The change just has to happen. It can't be stopped. There will be chaos and cruelty, and it might go on for a long time, but not forever. There is something stronger than all of this. It is growing slowly, like a forest, growing slowly outward from the center. It will take a long time, maybe longer than we will live, but It will prevail. They didn't say anything for a while. It was like something in Johnny's words had brought the details of the moment closer, and they had to pay attention to them. A warm, gentle wind was blowing. There was a rustling sound coming from all directions. All the trees, for as far as the eye could see, were swaying gently in the moonlight. A blinker had just risen over the peak of a misty mountain and was starting its lazy climb into the starry skies. Below them there was a clear strip of land where one of the tiered hills had been denuded of trees to fuel the fires for the textile mills in Stubblefield. Some kind of mottled shadow was rolling across that space. Johnny noticed it, but he didn't think much of it. The forest was always full of moving shadows. He turned his gaze upward to the stars, to the moon, to the rising blinker. He had always wanted to see a blinker cross the moon. Would it pass in front or would it pass behind? That would tell him something about the blinkers. He fixed his eye on the moon's orb, but as always, the blinker arced and moved away to lose itself in the river of stars. The mystery remained unsolved. He returned his attention to the treeless patch of the forest. There was definitely something moving down there. Less abstract now, distinct shapes were entering the clear space from the north and disappearing into the forest in the south. Animals, perhaps. He remembered the restless yipping of the coyotes, but coyotes did not move like this in such large numbers with such deliberate intention. He recalled once coming across a migration of salamanders moving across the forest floor like a living carpet, bound for the spawning marshes of the river. But these were not salamanders. They were far too large. A cold stone of dread began to harden in his stomach. At the same moment, Jocko spoke. "What is that?" Johnny knew. This was far too familiar a feeling. It was not what he wanted to feel at this time. "Oh, no," he said. "Please, no, not yet." "Johnny?" "It's the black coats, Jocko. They're coming for me." Jocko stiffened, and his back became as straight as a tree. "Then they're coming for me, too." No, just for me. It's not your time. This isn't your destiny." "I won't leave you, Johnny." "You will. You must. There is more for you to do. Go, back down, hurry, find Climber and Burnleg. Tell them you want to go with them. Change your name, cut your hair, take to the open road. Do it." "Johnny, do it." Jocko stood. "I'll go down and distract them. You can escape." "Don't. They will kill us both. Don't argue. This is part of its plan." "No!" Jocko threw himself at Johnny. He grasped at his shoulders and tried to pull him into an embrace, but something happened. Johnny felt a surge rush outward from the core of his body, down his arms, out through his hands. Jocko was thrown backwards. He landed with his back on the ground, his eyes wide with terror, no less than the terror Johnny felt at his own sudden power. "I'm sorry, Jocko," Johnny cried as the force drained. from his limbs. Save yourself. Go. Quickly. For a moment the two men stood staring at each other. Johnny could only imagine what Jocko was thinking. From the forest below he heard sounds, bodies breaking through bracken, the chant of muffled voices. Out of nowhere, he remembered the last words of Mars Daniel. Jocko, he said. Jocko Moto. I'll see you again. Jocko. In the next world, if not in this. Jocko turned and fled. Jocko turned and fled. Johnny heard him hurling through the trees along the trail, down to the open bowl where the music had been played, down through the dark forest that opened out into the valley of King Corn. As he ran, he cried and wailed, and the further away he got, the more his cries resembled a melody, a familiar fiddle tune fading in the distance. Happy to meet, sorry to part. Johnny stood on the stone where they had been sitting. He stood as tall as he could. He put his hands on his hips. So, this is it, he told himself. But then, this is always it. With his mind clear and his heart pure, released from the chains of the world, known and unknown, Johnny Arcane rose to greet his destiny.